Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Check. What up, world? It's the man with the plan, Bert McGurk, a.k.a. PR, the King of Hearts, and you are now tuned into Clocking Out, the podcast you listen to when you need to get motivated and inspired to doing bigger and better things. What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Clocking Out. I'm your host, PR, the King of Hearts. And we are here with a new guest speaker today, Brian Miller. Brian, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and supporters?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, as PR said, I'm Brian Miller, or bmiller375 on Twitch. My profile on Twitter is a little bit different, but he can tag that in there if you want to follow me.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have all of Brian's contact information, social media information, and all of the stuff that if you want to reach out to him and learn more about what he's doing and what he has going on, it'll be in the description to wherever you're listening to this podcast episode or watching. Brian, before we get into anything, 1 second. We are fellow VFriend community members, correct?
Yes, we are. I believe that's how we met.
Yes. And how long have you been part of the VFriends community?
Since Gary started talking about it, and what was it? Spring of 21. I minted 2 of them on mint day. So I've been in the community since it started.
Nice. And what were the 2 that you minted?
Well, that's kind of a funny story because I actually figured out how to do. I had a MetaMask account already because I've been dabbling in crypto since 2017. However, I had no clue how to mint an NFT or how to buy them or what they even were. I wasn't in that realm at all. And on mint day, when I tried to do it, I had the ETH, but I needed a little bit of help. So in Discord, the ones I tried minting, I didn't get, I guess, because I didn't know about gas. I didn't know any of that stuff and wasn't working out. And I didn't want to miss out, right? I had FOMO.
Exactly.
So I was trying to get one of these and it wasn't working. And I'm like, man, I need help. And someone on Discord went live with me and walked it through and said, you need to clear out your cache. And I ended up minting a rare methodical mammoth and a core. Actually, I minted that one. I was like, okay, I'm good. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's going to be 3 years of VCon, whatever that's going to be. Or I don't even think we knew it was called VCon yet, but 3 years of conferences. I was like, you know what? I better get another one so I can bring my wife and we can use it as a vacation. Otherwise, she's going to be mad if I go alone.
Definitely.
So then I got some more ETH in my wallet. And once I had learned how to mint, then I minted a core Witty Weasel. So those are the 2 that I minted on mint day or mint week kind of because it was a multiple days with different characters in that auction thing or whatever it was called. So
yeah, and did you diamond hands? Did you still got them today or?
Oh yeah, I did. At the peak, I was declining 40, 60K offers just because I was like, I'm not. It was crazy some of the WETH offers I was getting on OpenSea, and I was just like, no, I'm holding them.
Is it
that's me. It's hard. I'm a huge collector. I've always been, and it's hard for me to sell and let go of things. So,
I see all the stuff you got going on in the back over there. You got a bunch of
that's just a little bit. I mean, that's my.
Oh, but he said that's a little bit. Oh,
I mean,
man,
I got a lot.
Yeah, you do.
And then I got bins of. I probably got 8 bins of sealed wax that I'm just holding for a long time until they.
I love that.
Hopefully they go up in value.
I definitely want to touch on that. Before we get any deeper into any stuff of collecting and NFTs and VFriends and all that stuff like that, could you please give our listeners as well as myself a brief little background of who you are and your experience, not only in the NFT space with VFriends, but also as a collector or as a business owner? You wear many hats and you have experience and many different things, which sparked my curiosity. And when you reached out to me, I definitely wanted to speak with you. You are someone that I've seen in the community before. And, just based off the information that I got from your profiles, I see that you're very experienced and you have many talents that people either don't see just from face value of what they see on your profile. They just see the PFP and they see what you're willing to share. But if you dig a little deeper, you see that you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur, you're a collector. And being in the V Friends community and space, you come across a lot of talented people who have a lot of experience dabbling in many different things. And it's just crazy how we all tend to collectively meet each other and come together in the space, and we all get along, or we all have similar stories or experiences. So I wanted to learn more about you, as well as see what it is that you're working on right now, and just who you are as a person. So if you could just give us some information of who you are and your background and your history, not only in the space but also as a business entrepreneur and a collector.
Yeah, so I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it's a small city, 100K. Back when I was growing up, it was less. Um, I was a poor student, um, barely graduated high school, and we're talking. I'm older, right? I'm gonna be 45 this year, so I'm old. And that was back when college. That was the path where most people were like, "Oh, hey, you go to college, that's the path to success, right? Get into a college, go work for a corporation, and you're good." I had no interest in college whatsoever. I took a lot of mechanics and shop classes. Um, grew up in the woods, hunting and fishing. So that's kind of my background. And after I graduated, I really had no plan. And my dad said, "What are you going to do with your life? Because you're not going to sit here and work at Walmart and stay in my house." I was like, "Well, I'm going to join the military." He said, "Well, stop talking about it and do it." So he said that to me on a weekend. I went to the recruiter's office on a Monday, and Friday I was signing a contract to join the Army. So I shipped off, went in the Army, active duty. I re-enlisted while I was active duty, so I did about a total of 5 years active. Got out, moved back home. Was like, okay, what am I going to do? I tried sending some resumes out. They said, "Well, your resume shows that you should be a cop." And I'm like, okay. So I got my degree, associate degree in law enforcement, and college was, I would recommend anyone struggling. The military set me up for who I am today because it gave you discipline and direction and a purpose. And that transition's a little bit hard when you get out into civilian life, but if you can navigate that, it worked out well for me because college was just, I got off active duty in the beginning of 2003, and I already had 2 tours of combat in Afghanistan at that point, and I'm in college with 18 and 19-year-olds. I just couldn't handle it. So I said, "This is BS," and I had GI Bill money. So I took 77 credits in 3 semesters to get my degree because it just needed to be done because I couldn't apply for a job till I had that. And then there was nothing around here because back then, 2004, there was one opening for 2,000 applicants, and I couldn't even. I sucked at taking tests. The first process is taking a written test, and I never scored high enough, and they weeded me out. So I decided to pick up and move to Florida with some of the guys that I served with in the military lived down there, and I said, "Hey, can I come crash on your couch? I need to go where there's a better market for law enforcement." So I moved to Clearwater, Florida, and I got hired within 3 months. Did that, move back home because my grandma got diagnosed with cancer, and I needed to come home and take care of my grandma because my dad passed away when I was 8, my real dad. And I was the only surviving family member left, so I came back home. With my experience now, I was able to get a job quickly here at the sheriff's department. So I was a cop here up in Green Bay and Brown County for 12 years. I did 8 years on the SWAT team, 4 years as a sniper. And during that time, I actually learned, during that time also as a volunteer firefighter for 11 years because I lived in a small village and we didn't have a full-time fire department. It was all volunteer. So I wore two hats doing that. And I just kind of learned how the system was. And I really disliked it. I wasn't helping anybody. It was all about like, I wasn't a traffic Nazi, right? I mean, I wrote a dude a written warning for going 85 and a 45 just because he was honest to me. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to bust your balls. Like, go home. So it really wasn't me. And I just found myself going to work to collect a paycheck. And I didn't like it. And my wife wanted to start a business. So we, I should note this. I kind of had an entrepreneur background growing up. It's a messy situation, not to get too deep into my personal family life, but my mom was dating a guy for like 25 years that owned he owned a bar and had 3 concession trailers. I don't know if you know like fairs. I don't know where you're from, but
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
We have like county fairs, right? That happen all throughout the summer because that's the only time you can do it in Wisconsin because otherwise it's cold. And he had 3 trailers, and I started working. I started going up and down the Midway at the fairs at like 9 years old, and I was swinging around. That's when glow sticks came out, and we're talking late 80s. And I'm swinging them around and selling them for $1. So I kind of grew up with that. Little bit of entrepreneur background spirit. And I did that up until I was 16 and I got a job at McDonald's. So fast forward, me and my wife were talking, hey, let's start a business. And I'm like, okay, we started researching. I said, I don't want to do anything with grease because then the other 2 trailers we had 2 deep fryers in it, and we had beer battered cheese curds and French fries and all that stuff, right? And I was cooking it. We, after every event, you had to drain the grease and clean everything. And I didn't want a business with grease and all that hassle, right? I kind of knew that. So we said, what do we love? And we love ice cream. Business with. So we decided to start an ice cream shop. And we said, what do we love? And we hired a consultant, which I would not recommend to anybody doing. It was a total waste of money. But we hired a consultant to kind of walk us through it because I had no clue what to do. But we ended up talking to some places that were thinking about selling. Then I thought about a franchise. I signed an NDA, got a franchise agreement, and this thing was 128 pages. And it was all restrictive on what you could and could not do, what you could and could not sell, what vendors you had to use, etc. And I'm like, well, that's not very. I didn't want to be controlled. In the military, you were told where to be, when to be, what to do. And I wanted to be my own person. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing a franchise. So we came up with a plan, found a space, went to the bank to get a loan. And we went to 3 different banks. And we had actually paid this consultant $13,000 for a feasibility study. And that was a total waste of money. Don't ever waste your money on it. And I wanted to do everything right? So we'd be able to get a loan. So I wanted to do things the right way. And it was a total, it didn't work out in our favor. We got denied by 3 banks. Said, you're asking for too much money. So we're like, all right, let's just take a step back. And, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I didn't care. My wife worked, I worked. And then we came into someone that we knew that owned a building and said, hey, we got this space. We'll give it to you real cheap. And I was like, okay, well, I never framed a wall in my life or knew anything about construction. But I was like, my uncle was a master electrician. I had a buddy who was a journeyman carpenter. And I was like, hey, do you think we could do this together? So, instead of having a build out cost of $180,000, I was able to do it myself over 11 months for $60,000.
Nice.
With the help of my friends and relatives. And that worked out well. So we ended up opening up our own brick and mortar. It was called Monkey Tails with a Z.
Love that.
We had 24 flavors of ice cream. We had 3 soft serve machines that had frozen yogurt in it with orange leaf. I don't even know if they're still around, but they had one in Green Bay. Actually, funny story. That was the NDA for the franchise that we were looking at doing and opening up in Green Bay. And then they cut off all communication with us. And I wasn't, this was before I even decided not to go through with it. But I learned that Jordy Nelson and Mason Crosby were silent partners. And I don't know if you don't know who those guys are. They're wide receiver and a field goal kicker for the Packers. Kind of big names here in Green Bay.
Okay.
They had one silent partners and a guy that was opening up one of those franchise locations, so that, when a franchise, you can't open up another one. You get rights to a certain area once you buy into it. So I was like, oh, okay, so whatever. And they ended up folding. I don't know how long they're in business, but it didn't work out well. So I'm glad I went the route I did, but I also wanted to do the self-serve frozen yogurt where you put in your toppings and you weigh it and you pay by the ounce.
Yeah.
So we had 3 of those machines and had this store. But we kind of got screwed on the deal. Our land, if you want to go more details, I can. This is probably a different podcast. But long story short, our 5-year lease was up. I was not going to renew it. But during that time, I realized that the brick and mortar wasn't sustaining itself because it costs there's a lot of hidden costs that as an entrepreneur business owner, you don't really know until you get into it. And we were barely, surviving in wintertime. I thought we could stay open and have some sales, but it didn't work out. Our bank accounts were at, almost triple zero. And I needed to start a food truck to supplement and get more income and revenue coming in sales. And that's what let us survive so we didn't go broke. So I opened up the business in June of 14. I started a food truck in 15. And after our lease was up, I went full food truck, closed our store and went food truck exclusively. And then also during that time, you get to meet a lot of other business owners and food truck owners. And I'm like, hey, there's a place about 30 miles south of us called Appleton, Wisconsin, or they call it the Fox Valley. And they had started a food truck rally association. And there was a lot of food trucks in Green Bay, and there was a lot in the Fox Valley. And they got organized, and they started pushing up into the Green Bay area, trying to take away events that we were in. So we're like, hey, we can't let this happen. Like, they need to stay down there. We'll stay up here, or we'll partner and do different events in each area, right? Because if you have the same food at every event, people aren't going to come because they want a variety, right?
Yeah.
So that was our deal. So myself, there was 9 food trucks total that decided to pool our money together and start a food truck coalition. And they voted me as president of it. I guess maybe my organizational skills or leadership skills. And we started that in 2019 and had a super successful year. It was crazy. And then 2020, we had tripled our bookings because we would put on food truck rallies on Sunday evenings because with all our combined experience, we realized that doing events up in Wisconsin, people have cabins in the northern woods, right? So everyone would go up north on weekends and they wouldn't be in the city at all. They're all up out of town. So if you try to go do an event that's not promoted well, or you try to sit up on the side of the road, no one's around. It's a ghost town. I mean, I sat some Saturdays for 5 hours to do $60 in sales. I mean, that was back when I first started. I mean,
yeah.
you got to put in the time, right?
Exactly.
So, we realized that Sunday evenings were the ticket because everyone was coming home from their cabins, and kids either had school or daycare the next day, and moms and dads didn't want to get home from a weekend of fun up in the woods and have to cook supper. So we said, hey, let's do these rallies on Sunday evenings from 4 to 8 p.m. And we partnered with all these little local municipalities that, like you have like a big city, right? And then you have suburbs of that city they're different entities, right? So that's how it is around here. So we partnered with 9 of those and started doing rallies, and the government municipalities bought into it, and they would bring a band, they would have a beer tent, and the events were hugely successful. And
nice.
we organize it all, right? We're like, hey, you don't need to do anything except have logistics, parking, restrooms, and if you want a band, bring a band, you'll get more success. And usually all these municipalities were local volunteer fire departments. So the fire department's got a license to sell beer, and then they got to keep all the profits while we just serve the food. So it was a win-win for both of us. Plus, we wanted to give back to the community. So our coalition would donate a percentage of our sales to each one of those municipalities on their nonprofit that they picked. So it was a win-win for all of us, and that's how we grew it. So going into 2019 was hugely a success. We started getting calls from all these municipalities like, hey, we want one of these. We want one of these. By March, before they shut everything down for COVID, we had almost 52 events booked in March already. And we had we accepted 7 new trucks to our coalition. And that was a Sunday, and they shut down. COVID shut down on like Tuesday or Wednesday of that week after. And we're like, oh, what's going to happen now? So we had to pivot, and when it was all said and done at the end of 2020, we only ended up doing maybe 10 of those 52 events because everybody canceled due to the fear. But we survived, and we got through it. And now I'm still, well, I would say last year I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be president. We didn't get paid for it. We all just volunteered our time. But no one would take over. So this year I'm still part of it, but we added more trucks. Now we have a 25 food truck coalition. So we're pretty strong and big now.
Nice.
Have a lot of events planned for this upcoming season. But I've had my trailer. I had my food truck for sale for a year now. I'm trying to get out of it just because I went on to bigger and better things. Now I will pivot back. So that's my business experience of starting a business and, making it. But during the same time I was opening up my ice cream shop, a good friend of mine, he's a doctor. Him and another doctor went in together and bought, I don't know if you ever heard of sporting clays or trap shooting.
Yes.
Or skeet shooting.
Yes.
So these two doctors bought a 600-acre game farm with a bar and grill, and they had 4 courses of fire of a sporting clays. So you go and you walk a 1.1 mile course through the woods shooting clay targets. And then we also had an elevated 5 stand and a bar and grill and everything. And these are 2 doctors that have no clue what business is. And they were just throwing money at it, letting someone manage it. And it was going into the shitter, like really bad. They were grossing $320 a year in sales, but they were losing $80K.
No.
They had line of credits out and were just hurting bad. And my buddy Charlie, who's the one that owned it with another doctor, they're like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, I looked at the numbers, and at this point I have a wife and 2 kids, and I was still working at the sheriff's department. And I was like, dude, I can't quit if for me to turn this around. And at this point I didn't know nothing about business. I didn't start my ice cream shop yet, but I knew it needed to be done. And I said, to turn this around, I'd have to quit my job, and I have health insurance and everything. Like, it's too big of a risk. I can't do it at this point. And then he came back to me. I was still in the middle of construction at my ice cream shop, and he came back to me and he said, hey, what are you doing? He called me up, and I'm like, oh, I just finished hanging some sheetrock. He's like, well, hey, come meet me at this place. I want to buy you dinner. I'm like, all right, I could use a break. And I go into this place, and it's not a fancy place, but I'm in Carhartts and a sweatshirt, and I'm full of drywall dust. And I sit down for this dinner, and he has this guy here his name is Carlos. And he's like, I want you to meet my good friend Carlos. I think you two should meet. And I'm like, okay. So it was like a blind date. His wife was there. I'm there by myself. But I learned a little bit about Carlos, and he wants to go in on it's called Little Creek Lodge. That's the business. And he says, I think if you and I did this together, we could, I mean, I'm summarizing this conversation, right? But he says, I think if you and I did this together as a partner, we could really turn this thing around and do it. I'm like, well, I'm in the middle of starting this other business. He's like, well, let's do it. So we created a partnership, LLC, S Corp, and started that. So, and I really love that business, but that business had a lot of moving parts. We raised pheasants and chuckers, right? Because we would sell pheasants that customers would come in and they would purchase them during our preseason sale. And then there's a hunting season from September to March that we had this 600 acres of field, right? And people would purchase, a 17 bird package at $20 a bird. And then we would go and we would set, like, they would call and say, I want 6 of them set. So then we would go and set them in a field at a certain time, and then they would use their dogs and they would go hunt them. On top of that, we're running a bar and a grill, and we also had the clay course. So we had a lot of moving. It's a big operation. You need a lot of people and employees, and that was an experience. But in 4 years, we were able to bring that business up to about 750, 800K gross, and all the money that we made, though, we agreed that we had to put back into the business because we had to buy, our first year, all our profit went to buying 14 new throwers at 3K a piece. Like, I really didn't take a dime from it. Everything went back into the business because we had to improve. It was all neglected. We had to do maintenance on all the machines, so it was, that was an operation. I learned a lot, considering I never ran an operation like that, but we just did it. So that's my background on running those two type of operations. But go back to me closing down my ice cream shop, right? Now at this point, I have a total of 4 kids during this 5-year time span. And come winter time, now that I went exclusively food truck, I have nothing to do in the winter. And I will say that in order, I could go back to me quitting the sheriff's department. I left there in 2015.
And that was to work on the ice cream shop, or was that the whole situation with the shooting?
That was well, actually that was at a point where let's just put it this way. I did not know who Gary Vee was at that time, but I knew that I was suffering and I needed to go all in on my business. But I didn't fully quit full time. But let's say at the sheriff's department, being on SWAT, having night shift premium differential pay, without taking any overtime, just court overtime, I was easily grossing 75 to 80K a year. A decent salary, right? But I hated it. So I decided to take a job as a federal cop working at the VA. But that dropped my pay down to 36K a year. But it gave me Monday through Friday banker hours. I didn't have to work night shifts anymore. I had weekends off and holidays off. And that gave me time to work on the Little Creek business, because me and Carlos, my partner, we would take turns managing it each weekend. And then it also gave me an opportunity to concentrate on the ice cream shop. And so during that little transition period, I had to see if I could survive taking that big pay cut, which, when you're trying to run a business, I mean, I can tell you for almost a year and a half, 2 years, while I was working the sheriff's department, I mean, I would work 10P to 6A. I'd get off work. I'd run up to Little Creek, which was a 25-minute drive. I would spend about 3-4 hours there, filling or doing maintenance on stuff, come home, sleep, and then get up and go back into work. So, and then if I had to go down to the ice cream shop, I'd have to go down there. So I was easily working between everything 90, 95 hours a week. It was really killing me. I had no family life whatsoever. So that was suffering. So I had to, make a decision, and my wife agreed on it, and we did it. But to set all that up, though, after being at the VA for a year and a half and taking that pay cut, that was a huge pay cut. I had a financial advisor who I had met. He was a customer at Little Creek who I had met, and I was like, "Hey, would I be able to take interest on my investments?" And I figured out if I took interest on my investments, I could still bring home the same amount of pay I was making at the VA. And he's like, "Yeah, we can do that." And I was like, "Sweet." So I only worked at the VA for a year and a half. And you want to talk about government waste? Like, it's crazy with the government waste. We can get into that later if you want. But that job had zero purpose. I shouldn't have even been there. You're just a glorified security guard. And,
I hear you.
I won't go into it anymore. But we I was like, well, okay, screw it. Why am I going to stay working here when I can concentrate on my businesses? So I left there. And at that point in time, I left the VA. I put in so much time and effort to turning Little Creek around. I will say that I had my mom working for me as like she was supposed to be the quote unquote manager. But I was still going in there and doing a lot of logistical stuff, hiring and firing. And, I mean, she did a great job, but it was I couldn't afford to pay her anymore because we weren't making enough money. And I was like, we need to close in the winter. It doesn't pay to turn on the lights and pay employees. Like, we don't make enough. She's like, no, we need to stay open. And we had those arguments. And I said, I'm going to help you write a resume. And I helped her find, she got a job that she loves now. So, quote unquote, I had to part ways with her. She got a job that she liked. Plus, every time we had a family dinner and everything, all that we talked about was ice cream shop and what we could be doing to it. And it just wasn't good dynamics for me. I'd get frustrated. She would get frustrated. So it was good in that sense. So I became the full-time manager employee doing everything at my ice cream shop. So that was when I quit. I went full-time there. And then I told Carlos, my business partner at Little Creek, I said, hey man, I told him my situation and he understood it. So we decided to part ways, or, I'm still great friends with him. I learned so much from him because this Carlos is he knew this business in and out, and he also worked full time. So I parted ways with that because I needed to concentrate on my personal business. So I had to go in there and learn that. But I got lucky because the Green Bay Packers, they have this community outreach program that's called the Green Bay Packer Mentor Protege Program, and it partners business owners with subject matter experts in areas that you need help with uh, for business.
That's
And
great.
it was kind of like a round table dating, speed dating, because you would go and interview these different guys sitting at tables, and then at the end of the interview process, you marked which mentor you thought could help your business the most. And my biggest thing was marketing and advertising because I had great product, great customer service. People just didn't know where I was at. Um, so that's where I got my mentor. I got I got accepted to the program, and you had to do a lot of work. You had to submit quarterly statements and what you're doing to improve, and you had to kind of graduate the class. And the president of the Packers, Mark Murphy, they had a little graduation for you and stuff. But when I met him, that's actually when he was like, hey, you need to follow this guy and watch some of his videos, and that was Gary Vee. And that's how I actually learned who he was. Um, but that helped me out. And then so I thought that background was kind of important to touch on. But then fast forward to where I said I was bored in the winter. That's where I went to my financial advisor because we're pretty close. I'm like, hey, what should I do, man? I need to find some other purpose because I can't just sit on my ass. You go from working and hustling so much. If you're not doing something, you feel like you're useless.
Exactly.
So he's like, hey, why don't you go get your license and come work with me? And I'm like, dude, I barely passed algebra in high school. I do not know how to do, like, I don't know formulas in math. Like, he's like, you don't need to know any math. Money is not math, and math is not money. You can't solve money problems using math. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, all you need to understand is think of the financial world as a big chessboard, and you need to learn what every single piece on that chessboard, the rules of every piece on that chessboard. And he said, once you can learn that, you can solve any money problem. You don't need math to do it. And if you need to do any math, we have programs that have all the calculators that do it all for you. If you can enter numbers into a data sheet, you're fine. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I went and got my license, and that's currently where I'm at, doing financial advising, consulting. I actually hate that word. I like to say I just educate people on money because
That's something I definitely need. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot. I'm going to be bothering you. I definitely need some proper education in that side of things.
yeah, so it's fun. Not one client is the same, so it's like a story problem, and you just have to figure out the best route to. I don't pressure anybody in anything. I just give them the information, and I help guide them on their decision, and figure out what you know we always say, find the need and fill the need. That's If we can do that, we're doing well. um but with that comes where we talked a little bit earlier. We actually created a It's kind of funny. It started off as it was all under the books at the time when we started it, but we kind of we had a business owner who went through a nasty divorce and needed a lot of money to buy out his wife and the business to end the divorce and have the separation complete. So he went to some payday loan places, and it's illegal to charge a certain amount of interest rate, but they charge you daily fees, they call it. And when you figure that out, his interest rate was almost in the 40 percentile, when you worked it all out. And it was like, it's ridiculous. And his business was so successful. He was making those payments, but he was paying a lot in interest. So Matt, the guy that I work for, my advisor, that he's my mentor, he went to some of his clients and said, "Hey, if you invest this, I'll give you 8% return." So they're like, "Oh, okay." So we started this fund that helped people in these situations. So he was able to pay off his payday loan places, and now we became the bank, and he paid us back interest so we could pay the investors that interest. And that turned into what we now call Cornerstone Fund, because now we realized there was such a need for it that we actually fund um, new businesses and help people with bad debt that is all collateralized, and that is all registered with the SEC and all legit now. We went legit, hired an attorney, got all the private placement memorandum all done, so it's all legit.
So
And
I could sorry to interrupt you. I would just want to make sure I properly understand this, or I'm getting this right. So you guys decided to come together and create something to help other people such as yourselves, basically, who are trying to start something and need either guidance or assistance financially or a point in the right direction, basically.
yeah, with my business background, we do have like an underwriting process that I meet with potential borrowers that are wanting to start a business, or like just last week we just funded a person is buying out a business that he got a loan from the bank for 1.2 million, but he needed a down payment, and that was about 240K. So they came to us for the down payment.
Gotcha.
um, so we usually come in as a secondary person, unless it's a low amount, like we've done some 20, $30,000. I did a $15,000 deal just to have someone help them get inventory, right, to get started. So it's all, but we it's not like we're not like a venture capitalist where we just dish out money and we're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea,
Exactly.
here's some money. We have to see all the numbers and have everything put together. But them working with me, here's the one thing I didn't like about the Green Bay Packer Mentor Protege program. You hit some of the requirements to even apply for it. You needed to be in business for 3 years, and you had to be struggling. Well, why are we waiting 3 years to help someone with a business? Why don't we help them from the get go so they're not struggling in 3 years, right? Let's help them right away. And that's kind of what we do with Cornerstone Fund. That's what I do. So every business, I mean, we funded. I'd have to look, but I'm gonna throw a ballpark number out of, like, I mean, we work with real estate investors that want to go pay cash for an auction house, and we won't make them make a payment because they're just flippers, right? So we'll give them funding for, we have to do a ARV, or aftermarket evaluation, and make sure that the property is going to be worth that, so they can refinance it and pay us back. But we do short-term promissory notes like that, but we fund everything. So it's not just that, but we also mentor businesses. Excuse me. They have to submit quarterly reports to me, and I need to like see their financials. They agree to open up the books when I need to, because
And
I don't want them to get in that position.
exactly. And is there
So
to get any access to that or to reach out to you, what are the I guess the requirements in order, whether it's you or anyone else, what do you think is something that people should make sure they have in order before they even take that step to reach out to someone to such as yourself or anyone else offering such a service of guidance or help or anything like that?
well, for us, I mean, really just go find a local financial advisor that, I mean, when I say financial advisor, some of them just deal with investing and you know, what's your how much money do you want to retire with, right? And they just do that calculation. But with us, we're a little bit different. We'll sit down and put in the 10-15 hours to talk to you about a blueprint and a plan, how to engineer your business, and walk you through all the steps. And I mean, no one even knows all the hidden costs that go into starting a business with, you know, property. I mean, I didn't know this. If I would have known this, I would have put a different number on the sheet. But when you start a business, like say in the city of Green Bay, where my ice cream shop was, they want to know the value of all the equipment in that business. So not only is the property owner, your landlord, paying taxes on his property taxes for that building, but because you have a business in that municipality, they also tax you on your business's personal property on the value of it. So like my first year in business, I put down that I had like 80 grand worth of equipment in there, and I got taxed, $2,200 for the year. I'm like, where the hell did this bill come from? Like there's so many hidden costs, and then I didn't know about unemployment tax or workman's comp insurance. Like, it's an ice cream shop. How is someone going to get hurt? Are they going to like cut their hand on a ice cream
Exactly.
scoop?
Exactly.
But you still have to have all this stuff, right? So there's a lot of hidden costs, and you just go through and walk through them on that. And you also have to get a good feel. Like, you can't just come to us and say, hey, I have this idea. Like, I'm gonna say, okay, well, you have this idea, you need to come up with how you're going to execute it. Like, I'm not going to hand you up money. Another big thing that we do to protect our investors, like this deal that we just did, this buyout last week, right? You have to have some sort of collateral. You personally guarantee the loan, right? But you could file bankruptcy and we're out of that money. However, we collateralize every loan that we have with some hard assets. So you need to have some type of assets that we can put on as collateral for the loan before we give it to you. Because my main interest is my investors, right? I don't want to. I need to protect them before I protect any business owner. So this deal that we just did, so that business that just closed last week, the 1.2 million, that includes some real estate and all the inventory. Well, the bank collateralized all that, so we can't collateralize that. However, this client had 8 rental properties that he had enough equity. We made him get appraisals on all the properties. He had enough equity in all those properties that we put a second mortgage on all those properties. So we're the second lien holder on those. So if he decides to sell them, our investors are protected because we can take all that money and still get paid back what we lent him. So that's that's the main thing. If you don't have any collateral, we won't give you a loan. So I mean, but there are some hard money lenders that won't. I'm sure there's some out there, or some rich person that says, "Yeah, I like your idea. Let's do it." I'm not saying don't try.
No, you're
That's
just going
that's
by your experience and what you think is the best way to go about it to avoid putting yourself or other people getting put in a worse situation than they were before they got into it, basically.
Yeah, correct. But yeah, so that's what I mean. That's my business background. So um, I will say that I'm also so in the military. I was in a elite special operations group, 75th Ranger Regiment, and there's a guy that we didn't serve together, but we served in the same unit, just different time frames. But we're a pretty close group, and I met him in we have private Facebook groups, and he moved from Japan back to the U.S. to start a crypto hedge fund, and he got his license, and I actually got him brought onto the firm that I work for. We're a small firm. We only have four advisors. We're a small local. I don't work for anything big. That's why we have the ability to do these alternative investments and can invest money wherever, right? As opposed to going to some big firm like Edward Jones or something. So he came onto our firm, and he has been in the process for 2 years of starting this crypto hedge fund that's trades on algorithm 24/7. And this guy that is a well-known guy in the investor community that builds these programs. And we actually are in the process of, he asked me to be on the advisory board for that, because he's a little, if you know anything about special operations guys or rangers, they're pretty gung-ho and, don't quit until the work is done. And we're pretty aggressive. I'm not anymore. I'm older, but he's younger. He's in his early 30s. So he wants me on the advisory board because I bring a little bit more calmness and common sense to, like, hey, dude, tap the brakes a little bit. We need to figure this shit out first. Like, so hopefully we're going to get that launched in the next 2 months, but that's going to be another avenue of an alternative investment to make some decent money in once it gets rolling. So that's another thing that I'm involved with. I went more like let's put it this way. This year I raised, inflation has drove up my wholesaler costs have gone up. So I raised my prices, and I serve a high quality ice cream. It's 14% butterfat, 100% Wisconsin dairy. It's real rich and creamy. So it's a premium quality ice cream, which costs more than your normal Kemp's or grocery store type ice cream. And I cater a lot of weddings and birthday parties. So I serve hand scooped ice cream, right? I'm not a neighborhood ice cream truck that serves prepackaged bars.
Gotcha.
But I raised all my catering prices this year, and I kind of priced it out where, like, yeah, I really don't want to go out unless it's going to really, really be worth my time. So
Exactly.
this summer I haven't. I'm just doing the rallies that we set up with the Food Truck Coalition and a couple other private events, but no one has booked me for anything yet because I kind of priced myself out of the market because I really don't have a desire to go out right now. But if I'm going to go out, it's going to be worth my time.
I 100% agree. I hear you on that.
Because I have this other, I'm managing about $12 million right now in this fund, so that's basically my main focus right now. And if I don't focus on that, then I get behind, and I don't like being behind. So
Exactly.
that's a little bit about my. I have a lot of avenues.
Yeah, you're very
In the business aspect.
From everything you're saying, man. It's just making me. It's making me honestly want to ask more questions. The more I hear you speak, the more I'm like, yo, I really got to pick this guy's brain. Like, whether it's on this podcast or whether I reach out to you, I know, like, I would love to learn more. Because me, I don't know anybody. Like, I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm a street kid. I grew up around nothing but like gangsters and like thugs and gang members and drug dealers and stuff like that. So now growing up, all those people, if they're not dead in jail or just living miserable lives, you know what I mean? Like, there's no one I grew up with that, in all honesty, I feel I can gain any beneficial information or anything that I can use to improve my life or use towards any of my goals or plans or ideas. So it's hard. Like, I always try to get people around me to get interested in that, to get interested in business, to get interested in how to build up credit, how to go and start a corporation or get loans or the right and wrong way to do things. But I don't have those type of people in in my environment around me that are into that. You speak those things into them. It's like, but that's not for us and we can't do that. We can't get a loan. The bank's not going to trust us. We can't start a business. No one's going to buy from us. I'm surrounded by all of that. So every time I try my best to get those people to listen to Gary Vee or listen to it's always one of those things that they brush off because they don't even want to give it a chance. They're just so used to the regular repetitiveness that they're into that really doesn't get them anywhere, that they don't see it. And it hurts them. It hurts to hear that, oh, you've been doing the same thing and not getting nowhere. Like I hear everything that you're saying as far as you getting with people and putting money together or just coming together to speak and plan things out. I wish I could do that. You know what I mean? I wish I was around even one or two people that would be willing to sit down and talk like, listen, you're doing this, I'm doing this. Let's find a way to work together and make things happen. But I'm stuck in like this area where people are like, if I know something, I keep it to myself because I don't want no one doing better than me. I don't want no one competing with me. I don't want no one, when people seem to just forget that. I feel like there's enough for everyone to go around. And I feel everyone who's willing to put in the work should get their portion. But at the same time, it's like you said, there's some people that just come up and they expect to be given a handout like, oh, you have a business? Okay, cool. Just because you have one and you're willing to tell me you have a business, here's the money, go do it. You know what I mean? And it's not that simple. It's not that easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort of messing up and learning from your mistakes and putting in that work. But it's just the more and more I hear you speak, I can hear not only the discipline and the focus that you have, that whether it came from the military and your experience in there and what you learned, or just in general from you just being that type of person to just adapt and to evolve and keep going. I want to be around more people like that. I feel like I don't know enough people that have that type of attitude or mentality. So it's like when I hear you speaking and I hear you say that you go from one thing to another and you stay like, you keep yourself busy and you keep yourself learning or improving and getting better and trying to like just keep moving forward. It's crazy because it's like, I'm like, why? It's like you hear about people like this, but you don't really see that many of them. Or if not, if you see them, you wouldn't even know them. They would walk right past you because they don't make it obvious. They don't have that thing where they show off, or it doesn't scream at you like I'm making money or I'm better than you, or it's a person that knows how to carry themselves. They're willing to speak with you, they're willing to listen, they're willing to share. And from everything that you're saying, man, it's just crazy how I would think like a person that does all this stuff. It's even like you said, you had that security job and it was just a glorified security job and you didn't like it. I know other people that have been like, yo, this is an easy ass job. I'm getting paid good money. I don't have to do nothing. Screw it. This is it. I'm staying here. This is what I'm doing. You, on the other hand, it bothered you and you wanted to do something more. You didn't like just sitting there not really doing anything. And you even said it like they don't need it. It's not really something that's that serious. It's like, and I get that and I respect that of you, because a lot of people, like I said, they would just get comfortable with it and just get an easy paycheck. You know what I mean? But you are actually trying to do bigger and better. You're working with other people, you're collaborating, you're networking, you're building. And it's stuff like that is just, it's crazy to me. And I want to learn, what is it about people? Like, you would think it's what's enough. Like, don't you, and you said it, like, you don't want to do that this year, so you just raise the prices, but that doesn't mean that you stopped doing it. You know what I mean? And it's things like that I like, and that I'm trying to get more involved in with people who are like that, because I feel like I can learn, man. I feel like I can learn not only just by being able to have access to a person who's willing to share information and speak with you, but I feel like I could learn from your actions, period, from what you're doing and from what you're willing to share. And I think that there's a lot of value in that when it comes to a person like you. And you have a diverse set of roles. You're owning a food truck and being a fund manager and financial advisor. How do you navigate on such a wide range of professions, and like what inspired you to pursue each path?
That's a good question. Well, the food truck thing, that was kind of I really had no choice. I had to pivot to try to generate more revenue and income. Otherwise, my business would have, went under. So, and really, I mean, I tell this this would be my number one piece of advice for anybody out there. And I actually had, and if anyone's a mechanic or anything, I don't know the rules and logistics of an oil change place, but instead of a brick and mortar is so expensive. Your overhead, I mean, I reduced my overhead cost almost by 60% by closing my brick and mortar down and just going straight food truck, right? Any business idea that you have or can think of, instead of having a physical location, try to make it mobile. That would be my number one piece of advice. Like I right away it jumped out to me. Like if I had ambition to start another business, I would do like oil changes, right? Where I would have a trailer with all the equipment in it, and I would just schedule it, and I would go to people's place of business while they're at work and change the oil for them,
That's smart.
instead of them having to drive it to a place and wait 45 minutes or an hour,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I don't know all the rules and regulations. I'm sure there's EPA regulations on if you spill some oil and stuff like that. But that's what I would research. Like, can that be done? I don't know. I know some people who started a welding business and have it all on a trailer and go out to they're making six figures easily by going out to farms and are a mobile welder and weld farm equipment because they can't get a big ass tractor into a shop, right? Or they need it fixed like right now because it's in the middle of a field and it broke down. So that, yeah, like being able to think outside the box and just pivot there. But to answer your question, the food truck thing, that was a must and a need, and it's good money. I can go set up for a 4 hour event and bring in $2,000 in sales. Like that's easy money.
Yeah.
And I don't have any employees anymore. I mean, I would say the biggest struggle that I see right now with mentoring all the businesses that I have under my portfolio that we funded right now is reliable employees. Um, that's like the biggest challenge. But with my food truck, I have my kids that work. One of them, he's 12. He was 2 years ago. I started having him run the cash register, and me and my other son, who's 18, him and I serve, right, and we can get through a line of 50 people in 20 minutes because
Nice.
we're that fast, right? And for us, it's the volume of sales that you can do, and also being at good events. Now, that's not to say though, like I mentioned back earlier, when I first started the food truck, you have to. What would Gary say? You have to spend your time in the dirt. I
Yep.
mean, I sat for 5 hours and did $60 in sales. Like I wasted an entire day. Like, and I would take any event that I was offered just to get my name out there. But now I have my name out there and I barely do, you know, little festivals and stuff. I just turned one down yesterday because they said, "Oh, hey, we're doing this thing we have about 3,000 people that attend and it's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m." And I said, "Well, no one eats ice cream at 9 a.m. I'm not going to go sit there. People don't start eating ice cream until around lunchtime after they eat lunch at like noon."
Hmm.
I was like, "Can I come later? I'll come from 12 to 3." They're like, "No, our gates closed down. You won't be able to come in. You need to be set up by 8:30." Like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the event then because I'm not going to go sit there. Now, I said that I can't pay employees that, but essentially I'm paying myself, right? Because I'm the one that's working and my kids, work with me. But
Exactly.
I don't want to sit there on my ass for those 3-4 hours when I it just makes zero sense to me. So I was like, sorry, I have to decline, right? So, but back in the day when I was first starting, I would have took that gig in a heartbeat because I needed to put my time in and I needed to get known. Like it's not an overnight success. You have to put, I mean, what are we, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, you know, 8 years it's taken me to get to this point where I can pick and choose my events. It's not, you have to spend the time in the dirt and maybe you won't make a lot of money your first couple of years, but as your name gets out there, like my corp, I don't know if you ever heard of Schneider Trucking.
Sounds
They're
familiar.
Yeah, their headquarters is based here in Green Bay. I go do 3 corporate events for them throughout the summer. They call me back every single year. Like that's where United Healthcare. I go there in the beginning of summer and fall. Like those are 2 hour gigs where I'm doing $2,000, in sales. That's not profit, but
But still,
that's
yeah.
like those are the gigs that I take. But it took a while to develop those relationships where they call me back. I make the process easy. I show up, everyone's happy. I serve a good product, right? You have to have good customer service and good product. So I could talk food trucks all day long, and not just ice cream. Like, having 25 trucks, I feel like I'm the dad to a lot of these trucks because, they come to me with issues and I have to, even guide them. I mean, hell, like you said, there's plenty to go around. One of the food trucks, he started in our coalition. He was one of the founding trucks. He has a Caribbean truck, right? He does Cubans and uh, that type of cuisine. And this winter, he started an ice cream truck because he goes to so many events and gets booked for weddings. And they say, "Hey, do you know dessert?" And normally he'll tell me like, "Hey, these people want a dessert." But after last year, when I didn't do many of them because I was focused more on a different job and I overpriced myself, he decided to start his own ice cream truck. Well, I told him all the ins and outs and told him where. Now, granted, because of who my wholesaler is, he can't sell the same stuff I have because I have this market in my locality.
Gotcha.
But he went to a different brand called Cedar Crest, and that's what he's going to do. But I mentored him and helped him out because I know there's plenty to go around, and I could care less. Like I like competition, so it is what it is in that avenue. But
I love that though. I love that. Like you said, you love competition, but you have enough. You have you believe in your product and you know what you're able to do, that you know that any competition isn't any competition. And that's what I like about it. Like you're devoted to what you're doing and you're confident in your product and the way that you're actually executing everything, and you've been doing it long enough that you can tell that it's not going to harm your business, it's not going to harm your clientele or anything like that by having another person doing ice cream as well. And it's like you said, like I didn't know that neither, where if you guys have a similar business, you can't sell the same thing from the same distributor or whatever it was, whoever's providing you with the product. Like I didn't even know it. That's something new to me also, because that was the first thing I was going to say. Like, wouldn't that cause some problems, being that he's doing ice cream also and you already have that and you guys are part of the same thing? Like, wouldn't that, bump some heads? But it's like you're saying, he's doing a different type of ice cream that's part of, it's a different flavoring or whatever it is, but it's completely not the same product that you're providing people. But at the same time, some others, like I say, like they tend to be like, no, I'm not trying to get this person to make more than me or steal my. You don't look at it like that. You look at it like, the more the better, and let me teach him, let him learn so he doesn't, go through the same things that I went through. It's hard to find people that are willing to work like that. And is there a specific reason that you're like that, or are you just genuine like that? Is there something that happened to you in the past that got you to be like, you know what, I never want no one to deal with this? Or is it just your own firsthand experience that got you to change and adapt and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna help other people? Like, what is it that brings that out of you to share the information without a second thought and to help other people?
well, I think I think it's always been in my nature being, a public servant, serving the country in the military, and being a cop. You don't become a cop to use excessive force. You usually use it to help people, and also, volunteering as a firefighter. Like I think it's just my nature in that aspect. But I mean, also I appreciate uh people who hustle and want to better themselves, and because there's so many people that don't, like you said, that are lazy. So if I get a good read on you and I feel like, hey, yeah, you're driven, you're not just all talk, um I'll do whatever I can, to help you and give you my advice. Like, now there are some people that I won't give a time or day to because I know they're just full of shit.
Exactly.
And I can, I mean, being in law enforcement and going to a variety of different calls, like you get to read people quite well. Like, is this guy going to be an issue for me? Do I need to call for backup, or is this dude pretty chill? Right? Like that just being able to read somebody is also important. Getting a feel for them. So I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but
You got the experience.
I trust my intuition
Yeah.
and that aspect, right? So yeah, like I think that just for me comes natural. I mean, my wife will get annoyed with me because I'll have a friend call me and be like, "Hey, I need some help with this," and I'll be like, "Okay, yeah, I'll be there," right? And then she'll be like, you have like three other projects you're in the work in. Why can't
Yeah.
you just finish one of those? Why are you going to help? Well, because he called me.
Yeah, I hear you.
And she's like, well, when has he helped you with anything? I'm like, I don't keep a tally. I don't know.
I respect that. I respect that.
So it's like, I don't know. I don't have an explanation. That's my best
I
explanation
get
for
you.
that.
You do the right thing because it's the right thing. It's in your nature. I love that, man. I really
I
love that.
mean, and I mean financial advising, right? I'll tell you that at least a third of my clients, some big firms won't even talk to you if you don't have a certain amount of net worth or money to invest with them, right? Because they make money on their assets under management and their commissions. A third or more of my clients, I just help teach them how to make a basic budget because they were overspending and are in huge amounts of credit card debt, and we make a plan on how to get out of it. They want to have money to invest with me for like 10 years. I just want to help them, right? I mean, to be honest with you, I don't need the financial advising job. I'm not saying I'm ultra wealthy, but I I don't rely on that income. That's just extra that I reinvest. But it is what it is. If I can help someone get out of a bad situation or get in a better situation, that's my goal,
Gotcha.
right? So
As a fund manager, as a financial advisor, what principles do you prioritize when managing funds and advising your clients? Like, how do you approach financial planning for individuals and businesses when it comes to that?
oh that's a good question. It's all about where taking them from point A to point B. Like it's more learning about I can tell you this, that I inherited some money when my grandparents passed away, right? And my grandpa had three different financial advisors. He wasn't, it wasn't a lot of money, but he had money with three different ones. And when he passed away, I had to go to all three of them with the probate court paperwork through courts and get all the accounts transferred to my name because I was the only surviving family member, right? So I got it all. And I had to meet with all three of them. And my intuition just told me, like, these guys are kind of weasel because they all wanted me to become their client, right? And at that point in time, I just signed the paperwork and got it into my name under my ownership. And I never gave them the time or day because I just didn't get a good feel for them. And now that I'm in this environment, like I think there's a lot of weasels out there. Um, and typically, when you go meet with a financial advisor, I mean, I'm just going to give you a generalized scenario on how I've seen it. It's like, oh, okay, how much money do you want to make? Or how much money do you want when you retire? Like, what do you think you're going to need? And you start throwing arbitrary numbers out there, right? I don't know, 2 million, 3 million. You use the 4 to 7% rule, right? So if you have $3 million, that's invested in the stock market, and you hope that the stock market does at least 7% or better, and you take 7% of that nest egg as interest, and that's what you live off of for the entire year. That's mostly how people calculate and base their retirement, right? And so the advisor will be like, okay, well, how old are you? I don't know, 32. Okay, so if we can take an average of earning 8% a year in the stock market, because historically since 1929 the stock market has averaged over that entire time frame of 10% gains per year. That's averaging it all out, right? Okay, well, you're going to have to invest, a number $357 a month into this investment account. And and then they'll ask you, when do you want to retire? And the general answer is, well, I can go on Medicaid at 65. So 65 is my year of retirement. All right. So if you work from 32 to 65 and you're making X amount, you need to invest X amount every month. And then when you retire at 65, you should have $3 million to retire on. And that's how they base the calculation. They don't take into account life.
Exactly.
Well, you're going to have, are you going to have any kids? Are they going to go to college? Or, like you don't have a plan for any of that. So that's, in my experience, a typical approach. We do it a different way, or I do it a different way. You can't build a house without a solid foundation, right? So a solid foundation is protection. So when I meet with someone, I look at, first it's figuring out what are their goals, right? Where are they in life? What are their pain points? What do they enjoy, etc. And figuring out what do they want, right? Getting to know your clients is the most important thing. Not just how much interest can I make you per year. That's how a lot of advisors, sell you. Well, before looking at your rate of return, I look at your rate of loss. How much credit card debt are you in? Because you're probably paying 20+% on credit card debt. So if I can make you 10%, you're still losing 10% per year. It's really not good until we get that credit card debt taken care of, right? Doesn't make any sense. So that's how I approach it and figure out, what do you want to do? And then we also look at protection, because anything that we build, like car insurance, right? If you have a net worth of $1 million, you should have a minimum of 350 and 500, 350 medical, 500 collision, right? If you're in a 4-car pileup and you're not properly insured, and you get a judgment against you, they can sue you and take away all your assets because you were underinsured. That would suck. Homeowners insurance, liability, right? Or umbrella policy. So if anyone out there carries concealed or has a concealed carry permit and carries concealed, or even if you're a homeowner and someone does a home invasion on your house and you end up having to injure them or take their life, unfortunately, you're probably going to you might be not held liable criminally, but you're going to get sued civilly. So if you don't have a good umbrella policy on your homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance, I don't know. I don't even know if you can get one on renters. I think you probably can. Or at least get a supplemental policy that is an umbrella. That is going to cover you, because you're probably going to get sued in court civilly. And if you can't pay that, now they're going to come after your assets. That's a big thing. So starting at protection, because I don't want to waste my time building something that, if you don't have a solid foundation and something like that happens where you're not properly protected, everything that we build is useless because they're going to come after it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I approach everything and set everything up. We don't even talk about what we're investing in or anything until I know about you and your debt and everything else, because if that's not taken care of, I don't even care what I can make you until we have a good solid foundation and debt is taken care of, because your rate of loss is usually greater than the rate of return I can give you. So that's how I approach everything. And I think it's a good formula for success. Also having one of the rules that before we even start investing money is we call it a WCA, wealth accumulation account. So what that is it's basically just a savings account. And until you have 50% of your annual gross income in a savings account, you should not be investing in anything, because when COVID happened, a majority of our clients lost their job for at least 3 months, if not longer, or totally lost their job completely. Well, they had 6 months of a security blanket that they could make all their bills and weren't that worried because that's how we set them up. So we could get them money out of that, right? Now there's other ways to have a savings account where you don't get penalized for withdrawing it early. And there's other opportunities out there, but I'm just giving you a basic generalized idea of how we set people up. So we have to get people in positions before we even start talking about investing for them. And then once they're in that position, then we put them on the right path. So that's a basic approach, and it works good in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to say it's the right approach, because there's 100 ways to skin a cat, and not one way is wrong. You know, that advisor that just says, okay, I want 3 million in a retirement account, he can do that for you. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying he's wrong or bad. It's just not the way that I like to do things. So there's, different strokes for different folks. And it's just whoever you feel is if you were looking at a financial advisor, I'd go interview multiple ones and see which one jives with your goals and who you get a good feel with.
I hear you on that. And you mentioned having a wife and your kids and, helping you in your business and everything. Balancing a busy professional life with being a husband and a father of 4 is not a small feat. I can only imagine. I have 2 kids myself. But how do you manage your time efficiently, and what advice would you give for others, parents pursuing entrepreneurship and trying to start, whether it's their own business or whether they're trying to get that experience before they invest the money and everything into that experience? Because it's not always easy, whether you're trying to learn the process or whether you're trying to start a business from scratch yourself. It's always it's more of a mind game, I feel like, in the beginning than anything, and making sure that you push through all those little obstacles of that get in the way of overthinking, as far as how you're going to do this, where you're going to get the funding, how long is it going to take, can I do it by myself, do I need help, all those questions. But at the same time, you also have to balance the fact of, like you're saying, you don't have that family life sometimes when you just dedicate all your time and effort to starting something and learning and building it from scratch. You take that time away from your family or your friends. What's some advice you would say to anyone that's in the beginning process or that's thinking of taking that step into starting their own journey as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, who's also has a family or has a significant other, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife? What's something that you utilized in your process of starting things that helped you out when it came to managing your time as well as your energy, or where you placed it?
Yeah, that's a that's a good question. Um, well, I would say, if you have ambition of starting a business, do it sooner than later, because once you get married or have a wife and kids, it makes it more difficult, and it happens to deal with a lot of successful time management. Um, and I like to use an acronym. We used it in law enforcement, um, especially like on SWAT, with different scenarios and situations we had to go in. Like, we call that win. What's important now, right? So focus on what's important now, right? When I was first starting off, my kids were really young. I had one in elementary school, and the others were young in daycare. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. And I would say that if you are married, whether you're married and have kids or married and no kids yet, you have to have a serious conversation with your spouse. And some people really don't know what getting into entrepreneurship is, but you are you are the guy. If you That's another thing I didn't like about brick and mortar, is we would have like a real crappy day or a real cold day or something, right? You still have store hours that are on Google and everything else. And if someone comes down to your ice cream shop, you have to have a warm body inside there managing it and serving people, right? So if you have an employee calling sick and that's the only person you had on the schedule that day, well, guess who is going in? You are, right? So you need to have that understanding with your spouse. Even if you're not there, you still need to go in and have that flexibility. I mean, that's the hardest part, is being able to get on the same page with your spouse and make sure that they understand what they're actually getting yourself into, if it's going to work or not. Um, the younger your kids are, I would say it's a little bit easier because they're not into sports yet and everything else. I mean, that's another reason I kind of stopped taking as many events as I did, because my son has made like the state soccer team now and is big into soccer, and I don't want to miss his games. I want to be there. Right. So I'll have weekends blocked out where he has a tournament, and I'm not going to book anything because I want to be there. Right. So that's important to me at this point in his life and my life. So, like going back to what's important now is being able to just manage all that, and also have an understanding spouse that understands what they're actually getting into. And if they don't agree with you on it, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And you either need to work on it or figure it out, or, maybe you don't start the business at this point in time. You wait until maybe the kids are older and have their license. You don't need to rush them everywhere to practices and other things, because that puts a lot of stress on both husband and wife. Who's going to take that responsibility? So I could tell you at this point, if I still had the ice cream shop and brick and mortar, it would be way more stressful than what it is right now. Because if I get asked for a booking that I want to take, before I commit to it, I'll talk to my wife and be like, "Hey, do we have anything going on at this point?" She's like, "Oh, no, I think we're good." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna take this then. You good with that?" It's communication, is a big thing. And then they say, "Oh yeah, okay, let's do it." Or, "No, we have to go to so and so's wedding. Like, you can't do that." Like, "All right, sounds good. I won't do it." So it's having that open communication, I would say, is most important with your spouse. I mean, it's not easy.
No, it's not. I've talked to this also. I've talked to Chels from To the Moon Collectibles also on the podcast, and we had the conversation, and I asked her about it also with her, because her and her husband are both entrepreneurs. They're both content creators. They both like to dabble in many different things, and that's something I have an issue with. When I meet someone, I can't call myself a successful entrepreneur. I always attempt to dabble in here in this and that, because it's in me. I don't like working for no one else. I never have a problem finding a job and work my way up to supervisor, manager, and all that stuff like that. But it gets to a point where you notice that you're worth more, or you could do better. And it's one of those things that it's kind of hard when you're trying to do that and find someone else who understands or can relate, because they'll look at it like, oh, you're a bum, or you don't get it, or just get a job and stick to a job. And a lot of them just look at it like, oh, you got a good job, it's nice, and it's a nice cushy job, you don't need to do much, just collect your paycheck, and just they don't get that bothers some people. They don't understand that sitting there is as simple as the job may be, as good as the pay may be. There's a thing in you that just feels like you're not where you're supposed to be. You're not doing what you should. And it's like you mentioned, like when you don't have something productive to do, you start feeling useless. You start feeling like, well, what am I doing with myself? I'm just sitting here, and time's going by, and I'm getting older, and I don't have anything to show for it. So I think that's something, like you said, it's really hard to find someone who understands and who can relate, and be not even just be there supportively in the sense of working with you, but just support you in what you're trying to do, and your dreams and your goals, whatever it is. I feel like if you're doing something in a positive way, and you're actually moving forward productively, where your efforts are being paid off in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a little bit, I think that it's good to have someone there rooting you on and telling you, what, you got this, we can do it. Because it's like you said, like there's going to be days that you're not going to be able to see your family, and that you have to do cancellations and reschedule, and you have to move things around, whether it's for the sake of the business or the sake of your family. But I'm pretty sure when it's a person such as yourself, who's basically dabbling in so many different things, that happens more often than not. But when you're in the beginning stages, it's like you mentioned, it's better to do it without having those things, being in a family and having kids, because it's everything you're saying resonates with me. I think about all, whether it's jobs or work or things that I'm trying to do, even podcasting. Like now, I got to go get my daughter in a few from school. But you think of those things like, am I making the right decision by putting this off or taking time from here and putting it there? And it's hard. And I feel like the number one thing that makes it hard about it is the way that we feel other people take it. Like people will take it personally, or they'll take it like, oh, he doesn't care, or here he goes again, he's rescheduling, for this work or this, that. And or if not, it's the other way around where people look at it like, oh, he's canceling again, or he's not coming to an event because he's going to his son's soccer game or wrestling, or they're going to go golfing, or he's taking a day off, or it's a birthday. And they'll be like, oh, he doesn't take his business serious. And it's that thing where you have to be comfortable with yourself in the sense of knowing that you're doing right by yourself, but at the same time, that you have that respect and discipline towards your business, that you're not just slacking, you're not taking a day off, where you stand. And those things that people say, whether it's someone personally or not, it's not going to affect you, and you're going to keep moving forward. But I think that sometimes we need that extra support from someone, whether it's a friend or a loved one, or a significant other, a wife, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is. I think that is a major part, and it's not easy. It's not easy finding someone to go through that with you and go through the process and take that long ride. But what I wanted to ask you next, I have two more questions I want to see if we can get to before we get out of here. When you're involved, I mean, as a collector, what do you collect, and how does your hobby interact or intersect with the things that you're doing in your professional life? Like, is it just something that you do because you enjoy it? And like, many collectors, like, yes, I collect, but at the same time, their end goal is to either one, hand that down to their family or loved ones and keep that going as a tradition and just keep that in their family. And then there's others that look at it like the end goal is like almost building a business, where at the end they want to build something great and have this massive thing where they can sell for a good profit later on and just live off of. Like, what is your point of view of it? What's your reason behind it? And what's your end goal when it comes to your collecting?
That changes that changes a lot. Like I've been collecting for a long time. I also like to flip life. Like I get excited when I go to Walmart and go down the clearance aisle and find something that's like I bought something for like $25 and listed on Facebook Marketplace and sold it for 125. And I didn't need the thing. I was just like, dude, I can flip this easily. Like I can't believe I just got this deal. Like that excites me. It's fun, right? But as far as collecting goes, I actually changed my point of view and I have to get better at it. It's like I have all these collectibles back here. Like I love Star Wars, right? Like my most prized possession is a 1977 on card, like it's still sealed R2D2 action figure, right? And I picked that up for super cheap. And like I really don't have many people in my office. Like who am I flexing that to?
Gotcha.
Right? So like me being able to part with it and sell it because I love it so much, but I'm like, dude, I could take that money and I could invest it. I mean, I invest in my own fund that I manage, right? Because I believe in it and I can make more money on it. I could take that $2,000 and be making 9% on it. Like, so like I have to, I've gotten to this point now where I'm starting to sell off a little bit more. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. As far as like V-Friends really hit me and I went a little crazy on that and bought some stuff. Like I have some stuff that I hope to flip. Like I have 2 sealed Series 1 boxes that I got dirt cheap. I had 3 of them. I ripped one. And I'm just holding on to the other 2. And I love it when I see Rips and Teacher and Josh rip all the Series 1 because that means supply is going down. And
Yeah.
I hope they're going to go up for value and I'm going to flip those eventually. As far as, I think I have almost 2 complete sets, including the gift coats right now.
Nice.
For the cards. And my kids, my 2 little girls and my son love the V-Friends, and those I'll probably hold on to and pass those down. Right. So it is what it is.
And are your kids as into it as you are, or not really when it comes to collecting and all that stuff?
My son is I took my son to the National in Chicago. Is my first time going, and I took him with, and he really loves it. Like that's all he asked for his birthday is Pokemon cards and VFriend cards and soccer cards. So that's usually what I buy him and get him. So he likes collecting and trading. That's what he does.
I like that, man. Yeah, I've been trying to get my kids into it also. Every now and then I share when I'm ripping a pack or making a video, I try to get them involved in everything and they get into it. They got into it themselves, but into their own stuff. Like I'm into like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, but like the original stuff. I don't like none of the new stuff that came out. But again, with the original stuff being that it's older, it's harder to get, it's more expensive, but it's that thing of the excitement. When it comes to flipping, I'm not that good at it because I guess a lot of these things have like a sentimental value to it because I come from a poor family, so they were never able to really afford these when I was young and I really wanted them. So now that I'm older, that's the reason why I kind of get it. It's like a nostalgic thing and I try to share that with my kids. So it's that thing of my parents not being able to get it and now that I'm in a position where I have kids and I understand times are hard, but whenever my kid wants like a little keychain thing or whatever, and it's something that I know he's really like into, I just think about me being a kid and how I was, and you always think of like, oh, you don't need that. It's pointless. You're gonna lose it, break it within a little. But it's that thing that kids have. So it's like I get into that with them, and I try to make that like our bonding thing. And they've branched off and got into. My son's into Dragon Ball Z. My daughter's into Naruto. So they collect those type of stuff. Meanwhile, I'm over here with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and like V Friends, and I got them into V Friends also. But it's a little bonding thing that we use. But before we get out of here, what I wanted to ask you last is looking forward to the future. What are your goals and aspirations, both personally and professionally? And do you have any new ventures or projects that you're working on that are coming in the horizon that you would like to share with us that you're excited about?
No, I guess personally, I think just being my goals there are just being a good father and a good husband to my wife and enjoying life. Like that's about it. Business wise, I mean, I just want to, keep growing this fund and have more opportunities to come up to help people. Um, I would say, what was the second part of that question?
If there's any ventures that you have or
Oh yeah,
projects.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do have 10 vending machines for VFriends that
Nice.
I've been, I have a few of them deployed, but I've been working with our local school district. Hope it's promising that I'll have them, and my goal is to get them in elementary schools, and my goal is that I'll have those. It got too late into the year. The PTO and the schools didn't want to bring them in middle of the year, so next year I should have them 5 of them in elementary schools. Um, that's going well. It was hard starting off because of policies and school board meetings and stuff like that to see the legality of it. But I'm hopeful that it'll all work out. I mean, that's really the only business venture I have. Hopefully, I'll sell my food truck business and I won't have that anymore. That's hopefully by next year. That'll be someone else will be running it.
I get you. I definitely want us to have another conversation. I'm a little upset just because we are constrained with time. It's my fault. I have to go get my kids. If not, I would have did something a little bit earlier or later or something. But I definitely want us to have another conversation if you're up for it. There's a lot of questions based off the other stuff that you
Oh
shared.
yeah, I should throw out there. I all this information I have in my head, I want to try to get out. And me and my buddy Josh, that's doing this crypto hedge fund, we started a podcast called Wealth
Wealth.
Warfare.
Yes, I was gonna ask you about that also.
Um,
We're running out of time. I want to get on that too.
but we're working. He's the video editor and stuff, and he's a perfectionist. So we started doing a few episodes. There's a few out there, but we're gonna be hitting that hard, getting some more stuff out there. But that's one thing that I'm working on, and I'm hopeful that'll grow and we can provide value. Our goal is to provide value out to people.
Yeah, I'm
I,
definitely
I'm
gonna be
I'm
tuning
not doing it like I'm not doing it to advertise, but I do want to be able to get out all the information that I have and experience on I mean, I've learned way more from my mistakes in business than my successes, and that's what I want to put out there so people don't make the same mistakes.
And that's
And
yes,
I
I
could
love that.
I could go on and on about where I wasted money and where areas that I got screwed and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would definitely like us to have a conversation on that too, and more in-depth questions, because it's me, and there's a lot of things that you mentioned, because I've one of the ideas that I had for things that I wanted to start did involve food trucks, because of the fact that when I did start doing research into things, I saw that the whole brick and mortar thing, and that it was just a lot of expenses. So I tried breaking things down to the simplest way that I can think of, but also with reason of solving a problem, whether in the community or anything like that that people had. And there are a few things that I do want to like share with you to get your thoughts on it. Whether it is to tell me if it's a good idea or a bad idea, or point me in the right direction, whatever it is. But I would really like us to talk more, whether on live, offline, whichever. I truly feel like you have a lot of information. I'm really upset that we have to cut it short today, but I really do want us to do another one if possible, if you're willing to get on, and we'll get more in-depth questions. Now that we got a better idea of who you are and your background and the experience you have from firsthand of you doing your own businesses and other people that you work with. I see that there's just like I think that we didn't even scratch the surface when it comes to what and I want to make sure that anyone who's watching this, whether you're listening, whether you're tuning in live, thank you for the 38 people who are here. We got 36 that are on X. We got another 2 who are on Twitch. Thank you guys for tuning in, for chatting in the chat. I really appreciate all the love and support. Make sure that you go and give B Miller a follow on Twitch. I'll be sure to have all his social media information in the description to wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. I really appreciate everyone who took the time to come by and show some love and support. Brian, thank you so much for giving me your time and for coming by. I really, really, I'm not lying whatsoever. I truly hope that we can have another conversation, because there's questions I didn't even really get to, just because we're strapped on time. But I want to thank you for, taking the time to share, to tell us more about you, what you're working on, and give us a little bit of a background on your history when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting your businesses. Is there anything you want to say to our listeners and followers before we get out of here?
No, thanks for hitting me up, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, let's do it again whenever you want to get more in depth. All that information will help anybody put it live or whatever you're doing.
Yes, I definitely.
That'll be cool, because I'm sure more people have the exact same questions you do, and if I can bring value, let's do it.
I literally have questions probably like that would make you feel. I probably would fall into someone who's would want to be one of your clients as financial advisor, man. I have so many questions. I'm a person myself. I literally don't know anything about nothing. And all I know is what I find online. But then again, there's only so much that you can like watch and read before you take that step. And a big portion of it is the lack of knowledge. I always feel like no matter how much information or deep diving I do online, I feel like I never know enough, or I don't know the right stuff. So talking to someone who's actually done it and who's doing it and has that firsthand experience, not just saying, oh, you could do this because I saw a video, but because you actually did it, I think there's more value in that. And I would learn a lot better, and actually having access to someone like you, to the point where I can ask a question, and whenever you have the time, you can answer back. That's very beneficial also. So if like I said,
if you're watching anywhere around the country, I can help you. It doesn't have to be in Wisconsin. So
yeah, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you later today. I'm going to hit you with a DM. Also, if you can, just be sure I have most of all your stuff that's on your profiles, but if there's anything that's not in your bio or anything that you want people to have, like a website or an email or anything like that you want me to put in the description, make sure that you send that over to me, and I'll add that on there. And everyone, please make sure that you give him a like, a follow, show him some love, subscribe to any of his stuff. Make sure that you check out the Wealth Welfare podcast. That's what it's called, right? Wealth Welfare.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Wealth Warfare.
Wealth Warfare. I said welfare. I'm sorry about that. Wealth Warfare. Make sure that you go and check out the podcast and go show some love over there as well. Brian, thank you so much for giving your time, for coming on to the podcast today. I truly hope that we can speak again. I'm going to send you a DM, and let's see if we can schedule something for next week if you're available, or we'll figure out and make it work.
Yeah, I make my own schedule. Just hit me up.
Gotcha, man.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate. I'm so sorry that we had to cut it a little bit short. I feel like we could have dragged it out for like another good hour or so, man. And there's a lot of more information that we can give people. So I'm really looking forward to our next conversation. I love you guys. Stay safe. Have a great day. Peace.
See ya.